the executive team in some ways was starting to fall apart, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them in particular decided that he wanted to be the CEO. So then you put all three of these things together, and any first-time founder naturally is like, I need some help.
Right. Well, what I imagine with the third one, you probably felt like there was a coup going on.
Yeah, a little bit.
Hi, welcome to the Go Slow to Grow Fast podcast, brought to you by Mercury. I'm your host, Heath Butler, and I'm really excited today about our guest, my friend, Steven Carter, founding CEO of Otto, formerly TeleVet. Steven, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, super exciting that we got schedules to align while you were here in town from Austin.
This is only our third time doing this, so.
Well, not really this. We've talked about it before, but it's going to be super exciting today in the world we live in of high-tech startups, innovation economy. I think some people don't realize it's either the life you've chosen or the one that's chosen you. And for the audience, it really doesn't matter because typically we all have similar goals, whether you're supporting a startup or you are the founder. It's all about solving a problem for as many people as you can, often for some of us, as fast as you can, and creating as much value as possible, all while changing the world and trying to do no evil. However, in the dynamic world of venture-backed startups, as Steven will tell us today, sometimes founders often come upon this pivotal point in their journey where they hand over the reins to a professional CEO who's been there and done that. So while the founder has this passionate and visionary idea, oftentimes they run into challenges and some seek help and some don't. And today we're going to dive into the heart of this issue and talk to Steven about his experience and why he chose to embrace a professional CEO to help the company through the next chapter of growth. So super exciting to have the conversation with you today, Steven.
Yeah, it'll be fun to dive in and to all the intricacies of how someone goes through this.
Yes. Look, before we do that, you recently announced, you and the team announced a successful Series B financing. And I'm curious to learn how that was, right? $40 million in equity, over $40 million in equity, $10 million in debt. I mean, that's a big round in this environment. Had to be a lot of fun and really easy, right?
I don't know about easy, but in some ways it was a lot of fun. We ended up going a strategic route, which is a little bit different than maybe many startups out there. And so the fun part was getting to meet, large corporations who have similar ambitions and talk about how you can help one another. But to be able to close that amount of funding in this environment, it took way longer than I think we even thought it would.
Yeah.
But to finally have that closed is a great feeling.
No, that's really cool. So what tell us this real quick for founders out there, why the strategic route and what did the strategics want?
Well, everyone probably has a unique situation. So in our experience, I think where strategics made a lot of sense is, and we talked about this a little bit last night, I think a lot of people focus on like the product market fit side of the business. And so we felt really confident that we had that. But in our particular market, the go-to-market strategy can be unique and challenging. Mm-hmm. And so one of the benefits for us, aside from just aligned vision, loving the corporations, the people who work at them, was the ability to increase, provide value to their business while also helping our business go through all of the various channels that they have. And so for us, that was a big part of it. The other piece of it was just from a strategic perspective, much more interested in our type of business, I would say, right. Whereas like traditional VC at the stage that we're at, the challenges with everything going on with funding, for us, it just made a lot of sense to go strategic.
Well, and to your point about the strategics and what they wanted, both of the strategics in your case are traditional manufacturers of products. They went through two-tier distribution systems, and you're giving them an opportunity to go direct to the consumer, right?
Yeah, for us, it's really important to always include the veterinarian. So Otto is a veterinary startup. And so for us, our philosophy has always been the veterinary is the center of the universe, and then we build around that. And so to create a unique business model where you can go directly to the consumer, but also reward the clinics who are involved in that process, is really a big win-win-win in the sense of the clinic is winning because they're able to educate, provide more services, importantly, sell more things that they would traditionally sell. The manufacturer is obviously shipping more goods, and then the company is growing in and of itself as well. So we had this really unique opportunity from a product as well as a strategic direction to be able to do this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned a little bit about Otto. So tell us the founding story of the company, formerly TeleVet,
Formerly Horsefax.
formerly Horsefax. I'm still waiting on the Horsefax, some Horsefax swag. But tell us how you and Price started the company and what that journey was like.
So my co-founder and I met in college. We actually didn't have any classes together. It was really kind of luck that we had run into each other. And there was a girl in the class who was trying to solve this problem of buying and selling horses. Specifically for them, they were buying horses, and sometimes people would drug the horses to hide any sort of like issues they were having. So we tried to create a CARFAX-like product for that industry, where when people were buying horses, they could ask for their Horsefax report, and be able to look at that and make better educated decisions. It balances the market power of like buying and selling. And so from there, we ended up spending a lot of time at veterinary clinics, specifically at this time in the equine space, really started to open our eyes to the challenges of just being a veterinarian in general. Equine vets, even more so. It's kind of chaotic in that world. Really difficult to get that product off, the ground for a variety of reasons. But one of the opportunities that we found was that we could launch a telemedicine service in the equine space. And at the time, that was like the most crazy concept ever for a lot of people. But we had enough vets or equine vets at the time who were interested. I had a personal experience with my dog going to my small animal vet, which just means cats and dogs. And through, fate in some ways, we ended up pivoting away from the equine space and really focusing on the massive opportunity with small animal, with cats and dogs. Spent a lot of time in that. Then this pandemic thing happened, and then everyone very quickly wanted telemedicine, or so we thought.
Right.
And we grew to be, I believe, the largest veterinary telemedicine company in the world.
In probably 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah, about 3 months and about 5 or 10 employees at max along the way.
Well, that's not counting the Mercury employees.
Yeah, and Jackie helping us with marketing and all those things. I think our unique experience really exposed us to what was about to happen with so many people buying pets, but not being able to just pluck vets off trees or hire staff as easily as maybe the industry would like. And so from there, we started to move into an efficiency product, which is now Otto and our suite of products that we have now.
That was pretty cool. I think so. Several times throughout your founding story you just told, you didn't spell it out, but the key thing was that you were listening to the customer. How important was that in the journey? It seems like the first time as you moved from horses to small animals, I mean, that was sort of veterinarian led, right?
Yeah, a little bit of like my own experiences. So one of the epiphany moments involved that story with my dog. He hated the car. He had a cut. We were just sitting on the bridge in Austin, which is rush hour traffic. And I tried to call my vet to get help, and they're like, you got to bring him in. So on the way back, I had actually called Price, and I was like, hey, man, like, we're going to do telemedicine for small animal because I can't be the only person that's ever done this. But through that, what kind of got us there was listening to our customers. They wouldn't necessarily be like, hey, I really want telemedicine, but they would say things like, we would really value having some privacy, and we'd love to be able to work when we want to work and get compensated for that. And so while they weren't saying telemedicine, they were describing the value props almost of telemedicine.
That's really interesting. So now tell us a little bit about what led up to the decision for you to bring in a professional CEO. Your growth of the company, was tremendous. And I guess, things started busting at the seams. Blair and I chatted with you about that, but tell us about it from your perspective and how it all made you feel to change course of leadership at the company.
I kind of look at it in just 3 different areas. The first is something that every first-time founder faces, which is just building a great company is really, really hard. And we were, because of the pandemic and our growth trajectory, we were hiring people left and right. So building culture on top of that is really hard as well. So that was the first battle that I was facing, was how do I build a great company in this sort of accelerated environment while also trying to balance all of the things that go on with your board and all these other things. The second thing is that we alluded to is that telemedicine was booming, but then it started to flatten out a little bit. And so for us, we were at a time where we needed to raise some funding, and the metrics and the numbers and everything weren't as great as they probably needed to be. And then the third thing is, and I don't know how much we'll dive into this today, but the executive team in some ways was starting to fall apart, honestly. And one of them in particular decided that he wanted to be the CEO. So then you put all three of these things together, and any first-time founder naturally is like, I need some help.
Right. Well, what I imagine with the third one, you probably felt like there was a coup going on.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you had this momentum moving against you, if you will, as you being the leader. And, one of the things we talked about in a recent session is it's sort of like the hero's journey, right? Everything's going great. Then all of a sudden this adversity comes and now you're in the typical part of the hero's journey, where there's this departure, right? And the hero sort of falls, if you will. What was it like to have to get in front of your employees, tell your family, just emotionally, psychologically, what was that like for you?
I think the first thing that a first or second time founder is immediately going to feel, and sometimes they come to these decisions before they even tell their board, because they sort of see the writing on the wall, right? With all the things going on, the conversations having with you and Blair, I think internally the first thing that happens is like, well, I have failed, right? Like
Right.
I have agreed, and I may have not told anyone yet, but I've sort of agreed that this is the direction we're going to go. And so you go through this grieving process internally, and then you get the joy of getting to grieve with a bunch of other people as well, right? And so for my wife, that was a huge challenge that her and I went through. And then, of course, with the team as well.
Oh, Price.
And my co-founder. Yeah, well, right. The crazy thing about this is like one of the hardest parts is you meet with mentors, your co-founder, your wife, your family, and probably 9 out of 10 of those people are going to be like, don't do it.
Right.
And then internally, though, you're like, this is the right thing for the business. And I think it's always important as a founder to always realize that your job isn't necessarily to be the best CEO, the best product person. It's just to make sure the business is successful.
Right.
And how that evolves over time will be different for everyone. But for me, I kind of knew that this was the right thing to do for us. And so getting to that point is you initially feel the sense of like, oh, I've failed and I've let everyone down. Reality is it's like people are probably, excited to kind of continue the journey, and they probably see the opportunity ahead. I think that was always a big thing for me and hopefully you guys, is that we knew if we were able to hit it out of the park, that this would be a massive opportunity. And so keeping the eye on that prize was always super important. But the journey is not fun for the founder.
Right.
It gets better. I think that's the good news. Now we're sitting here at a podcast.
Right.
We're both smiling.
We'll be able to talk about it.
We're both smiling. We can laugh about it. But I would be lying to anyone if I were like, it's really fun and you should volunteer to do it immediately. It'll be a process. And I think everyone will have different outcomes even. We were talking about this a little bit, is that certain people may opt out of the business completely.
Right.
Certain people may continue to do it in a different role or capacity. And then I think in some ways, in our unique situation, I've gotten the opportunity to get some thankful to our CEO, Zainab, to sort of be co-CEO in some ways and really help guide the vision, the direction. And that journey is not easy either, right? There's lots of challenges that arise from that.
So one of the things you're mentioning, and you're not really saying it, but the separation of the CEO role from the founder's identity. And it seems like founders that have a not as big an ego are able to do that better than founders that have bigger personalities. Not that you don't have a big personality, but you've just, you're a humble person, and you always think about the customer. You're thinking about your team, and you're thinking about yourself last as a founder. And I think that's a great trait. And it seemed like it allowed you to make the transition a little easier because you've never really had your ego out front with this. What are your thoughts there as it relates to other founders and other people that have gone through a similar experience?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a big ego, this is probably going to be extremely painful,
Yeah.
and you may want to make other decisions and things like that. But for me, I really really believe in what we're doing, the vision, the opportunity, the outcomes that can happen for myself, the team, the investors. It was always about how do I take the next step, right? And something weird happens when for a first time founder, I never hired a bunch of people, but something weird happens when you do that and you sort of feel responsible for them, almost like they're your kids.
Right. Right.
And so whenever you're sort of facing some of this stuff, you have to be sort of bigger than the situation in some ways and realize that it's not about you. It's really about the business opportunity, the people that believed in you as a first time founder to come and quit their jobs, refuse other jobs, whatever it might be. They all took a big bet, right?
Right.
So to let your ego get in front of that, I think is one of the biggest mistakes you can make in this process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that if you have that and you're going to do this, you got to really evaluate that before you start it.
Right.
And if you can't, then you can't, right? And that's a
Right.
different outcome, right?
Yeah.
But
No, it's a really interesting dilemma. If you're really honest with yourself, right, about what you do and how you do it. I know there's probably some people listening to this thinking, well, what would I do? And yeah, if the big ego's too big, it could be painful for you and dangerous for investors and the company. So really interesting perspectives. So are there any almost happens scenarios or stories you could briefly share that you think are relevant for the audience?
I think one that we haven't talked about in sort of the previous two talks about this was really on, if you're going to do this and you can put your ego aside, I think the next step is, how do I do it in a way that works for me? And what's going to be the best environment for the founder, who is really, really important to success. I think a lot of VCs enjoy them staying CEO, or at least being in the business for as long as possible. But if you're going to do that, I think and you decide to go that direction. For me, I think the next step was, well, who the heck's going to be the CEO, right? And so one of the almost that I think, I don't even know that we would be sitting here if that happened, was the executive who wanted to be the CEO.
Right.
And I think I actually wrote an email, but it's basically like, if you do this, I'm out, right? And so that was an almost
Oh, I remember
that I sat down and I was really, really angry. And I was like, all right, like this is the exit, right? For me personally. And that was a really emotional thing to go through as well. Fortunately, we had other people get involved and other decisions were made. Every first-time founder, every founder in general, right? Like they do a lot of crazy things
Right.
To get to the point that they're at. And that traditionally includes sacrifices, time away from family, time away from just your wife, your kids, whatever it might be. So when you get to that point and it's like, hey, I'm leaving, it's like, holy cow, like you're just gonna leave and oh, you're doing it for that reason? Like, well, yeah, you better leave, right?
Right.
So that was a big almost for me, that we don't talk a lot about, but even my own ego in some ways, and just sort of like my pain threshold sort of had been reached.
Yeah, you're humble, but you're like, I got some level of an ego.
There's a line around here somewhere, right? And that was the one that finally I was like, I just don't know if this is the right thing for me. And ultimately we chose a different direction, thankfully.
Yeah.
But that was probably the biggest almost in that process. Is it wasn't always, it's a much like startups, it goes up and down and up and down. And that was a down for us.
So the next part of the hero's journey, right, is the initiation. And so now you've relegated control, got a new CEO, Zainab Young, multi-time CEO, founded our own company and sold it, as well as was CEO 2 more times. So this is a 4th CEO job. Comes in with a lot of credibility. But for you, you're like, who is this person? What are we doing here? What was that like going through the transition with Zainab, and what were the opportunities and challenges? I know when we initiated the process, we committed to you that we'd find a CEO that would mentor you in case you decided to do this again. But once it starts and she's there, what was that process like for you from the interview through the first 90 days? I
think it's really important that in this interview process, you as the founder, you do everything you need to feel comfortable and to get it right. It's probably something that if you get it wrong, you only get it wrong once, and then you're on to the next thing. So that interview process was really important for me. And a lot of it was just sitting around like this and chatting with her and talking about what could be and the vision and how we would work together. So then you get to the part where you actually start to do those things. And I think you very quickly start to realize like, oh, it's not as easy as the interview process,
Right,
right?
right.
Like we thought it would be easy because, she's an amazing
Yeah, once the
person
people
and
get involved.
right, yeah. And then you start injecting all these problems,
Right,
right? And so
right.
for us, I think one of the biggest learnings that I have now that I didn't have then was just you think of the CEO coming in as this very, experienced, but you don't necessarily think about how they're feeling when they
Right,
come into the business.
right,
It was all about how I was feeling and
right.
how everyone else was feeling. So Zaynep handled that really, really well. But it's sort of like storming and norming to a
Yep,
degree, right?
yep,
You
yep.
face a problem and then you work together to solve it, and you're kind of in real time figuring out, oh, this is how this will be, or this is how it may not be.
Mhm.
And so that's a very interesting, experience. Her and I have done, that probably 100 different
I was gonna
times
say it's
now.
probably a continuous,
Right.
like, storming, forming, norming,
Oh yeah.
storming,
Yeah.
norming, forming, right?
Tripping,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
falling down,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
back up.
yeah.
And so it is genuinely like a process to get
Mhm.
to a place where you start to actually gel and be able to make decisions quickly, which is always really important.
But it sounds like
And
you both have a lot of empathy towards each other in that process, right? Of listening and, wanting to be a good partner with each other.
yeah, I mean, thankful to Zainab and her leadership and style of leadership, given me the opportunity to sort of be mentored, but also to provide feedback directly to her, make decisions in some ways. She hates it, but without even telling her, and things like that. But ultimately, like I think she really believes in the team outside of just myself to be able to go out and execute this thing. So she gives us some distance and some opportunity to think through it, and ultimately come in as a partner to give us some guidance, some direction, and things like that. So not traditional, probably, but for us,
But
it works really well.
but it does work, really well because she's a firm leader
Oh yeah.
in her perspectives and her decisions. So to then carve out space where she has enough confidence in you, like you say, make decisions without telling her, well, she knows she's giving you that, sort of space to do that, right? Not maybe knowing all the decision you're gonna make, but, no, it's really, really interesting, and I think, we're super excited, that we were able to land her, and she's the CEO, partnered up with you. That's good. So what do you think about where you guys are now and how your feedback loop is aligned and, how on a day-to-day basis you go through that? Is there a formal process that you agreed on? Is it still part of that storming, forming, norming concept, or what did you establish to have alignment?
It's still a little bit of the storm and norming forming thing. But for us, we have a weekly cadence where we have one on one time. We have our leadership meetings. And then I think something new that we started to do is her and I will actually collapse our one on one time to actually focus more on just business topics. So we'll meet with our CTO, we'll meet with our head of CS, customer success, and we'll sort of work together and sort of make it more of a three-way conversation with whoever we're meeting with. And that has actually like accelerated a lot of the conversations, challenges, things like that may arise when you're trying to do all this kind of weird
Yeah,
stuff.
because usually she would meet with those people on her
Yeah.
own one-on-ones.
Yeah, and so just one day I was like, she likes to know, obviously, as CEO, like what's going on or what decision. I was like, what if we just start collapsing these things and like you get to hear how people are interacting with me? We talk about important topics, we work together to problem solve. And this has started in like the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I think it's been like really valuable, at least for me, I think for her as well. But also the employees that we're meeting with, I think it gives them an opportunity to say an idea or a struggle one time and get feedback from multiple people.
So how's your role with the company evolved now? Because it sounds like not only is Zainab, giving space for you being one of the co-founders, but you're working hand in hand together, and, your role is pretty expansive across the company.
Yeah, my formal title is Chief Product Officer. So I do focus a ton on product, customers, how we make those things work together. Um, my informal role in the business is, still playing a little bit of, if we call it a president title or not, but really understanding just the leadership, where they're at, their emotions, I think is also important.
Are you still a little bit of a spiritual leader of
Yeah,
the company?
a spiritual leader in some ways. I do care a lot about that when people are working at Otto, that they're having and enjoying that time. For me, that's really, really important. And so naturally, those conversations may start to gravitate towards me. And then I give that feedback to Zainab and then let her be able to adjust or make decisions that way as well. But yeah, I mean, it's an evolving role in a lot of ways. We have a lot of huge opportunities for the business ahead, and so how we mold the product to be able to do all those things, to meet certain deadlines, but then also sort of being spiritual leader, are probably like the two big things I focus on right now.
So that sounds like the third part of the hero's journey, the resurrection. Sounds like
Resurrection.
you've been resurrected, and you're in a good place.
Yeah, I think if you had asked me whenever I was initially going through the feelings, like where would we be in 3 or 4 years, I'd probably say out of business, at home, working at someone else, doing something else, just because you're emotional, right? And that's really
makes sense.
I think I've told you this a few times. It's like whenever something happens, I usually give it 24 hours before I react.
Yeah, I wish I would do that.
This one was probably more like 48 hours. But thankfully, if you can step away from like the emotions of everything going on, and sort of realign to what's next. I think one of the most important things that someone told me was actually from you. But it was, don't tie your value to the company, or your title to your value.
Right.
And essentially being like, don't let CEO be the value, that you look at other things. And so I even tell that to other employees in the company and people that I mentor. And so if you can do that, things can turn out really well if you're lucky and you execute and you focus, of course. But it's been a fun and interesting journey along the way. But that is also like one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten.
So it sounds like if you could go back a couple of years, I guess 2.5 years at this point, it sounds like you're saying you believe it was the right decision and you'd do the same thing.
Yeah, I personally genuinely believe that if we hadn't made this decision, then we just wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
And to put it bluntly, it's like you can let your ego and your feelings get in the way, and you can step away or do whatever. Or in our situation, you could be sitting here in a podcast room, post-closing, $50 million in funding and an opportunity to double, triple your revenue over the next 12 to 14 months. I don't know about
Triple?
you.
What do you mean? I thought we're looking at quadruple.
Quadruple, maybe 2025. But if you take a step back from the emotions and you realize that if the opportunity that you're working on is genuinely as big as you think of it as the founder, it's really, really important to think about what you do next.
Right.
And so for me, it was hard. But I think if anyone was sitting here with the opportunity to go do something else or be a $50 million Series B company, probably going to choose the latter, right? So for sure, it has definitely worked out. Challenges along the way, of course, through the whole process. But Zainab also, she's not here today, but been a great asset to the business and really thankful for her leadership. She comes from VC, PE, as well as a founder herself. So lots of perspectives and value to provide there as well.
No, she's been awesome. And it's been great to work with both of you. And we're super excited for the future of the company, and appreciate the vulnerability and the authenticity. We don't have this conversation often enough, so hopefully this will help some first-time founders or even second-time founders if they find themselves in this situation. So thank you, appreciate it.
It's been awesome. Thank you.
We'll have you back in a couple of years when we're a $1 billion company.
Yeah, how to exit a $1 billion business.
Absolutely. That'll be the next podcast with you. All right, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.